Standing high aloft a crag, a sharpened arrowhead of rock and earth, stood one wayward spirit in the form of a tree. Bent and boundless, the tree pointed her budding limbs towards the sun-mirrored ocean her cliff overlooked, beckoning strangers from near and far to visit her abode. For her key was lonesome, reaching towards the infinite sky. Those strangers did come. Some were lost travelers taking sanctuary under her shade. Some were wayfarers on their own personal pilgrimages to see her cliffs and take in the thick ocean air. Some were drunk sailors, nestling with her roots for a brief, forgotten moment of companionship. Her favorite visitors were two lovers who met in the port town near the ridge. In their youth, they would sneak off to meet each other near her, and as their love grew and their bodies aged, they spent every spring equinox, the day of their joining, in the company of her branches. When their final days came, their children buried them beside one another, just under her weeping petals. Stones marked to the songs we sing and the people they comfort. A tree lives for many, many years. Those years turn into moments, and moments form stories. On a late summer evening, a scholar came and studied, back pressed into her bark. Entranced by the contraption in his hands, she dared a tendril of verdant foliage closer. Upon noticing her movements, the scholar leapt from his musings with a shriek, frightening the birds hidden in her leaves. What is this sorcery?" he asked after a moment of collecting himself.
Sorcery? I'm a living creature, am I not?
The scholar's mouth hung open in wonder until he offered, "I truly must be going mad if the trees are now speaking to me."
Do other trees not speak to you? They speak to me. Well, I hear their whispers on the wind from the forests off the coast, since I'm the only tree on this hill.
Post-shock, the scholar quizzically gazed upon the tree. The more she spoke, the more apparent it was to him the tree was lonely. She questioned him about the item in his hands. "A book," he told her, and she quickly became infatuated with its intentions.
Stories.
She said, an unmistakable smile in her voice.
How comforting.
He left the cliffs that night, eager to see her again. He would spend the following weeks bringing her countless books from his university, from academic texts to poetry and prose, and all of them she would receive with admiration. As autumn came and her verdure wilted and swept into the sea, he taught her to read. When that cold, creeping darkness set in and her branches went bare, he showed her how to sing. A friend. The gods had granted her a friend. But human lives, as the tree knew, were brief and fickle. When the scholar did not return after years of their companionship, the hurt that bloomed in his absence was unlike anything she had ever felt before.
Where have you gone?
So quiet. The world was so quiet. The ocean crashing into the cliffs, the wind howling and rustling. The birds that nested in her, none of them could quench the silence in her. That need to be seen, her voice heard. That feeling overcame her again and again, day after day, until she could no longer sit idly. So many unanswered questions. So many stories, begging to be heard. You using those same vines that had caressed her scholar's cheek the first day, she began to weave a body. Soil and seawater, mud that forms flesh, bones dug from the graves of old lovers, their stories, the strands of her hair, blood from nectar and sap, and eyes turned viridescent from the siphoned ivy buried in her bough. The tree turned girl fell to the ground. The newness of becoming too heavy for a quaking bud, she laid in the grass bare and shaking, somehow both complete and empty.
I am unbound, but I do not have the strength to set forth.
It was then, on that moonlit spring night, that fate had touched her for the first time. Golden thread, as bright as stars, reached from a place she could not see, some tear through the sky, a fractured bend of nothingness, as if the seams of the world had split just for her. They slipped through her body, stitching and mending, filling the cracks she could not on her own. When the portal closed, the girl found some semblance of strength as the gilded ichor of fate held her body together, and she stood. She reached for the branches of her mother tree and severed two of them, the first pink cherry blossom of that spring unfolding in her hands, before affixing them in a cradling crown atop her head.
Persist, third sapling. Bring your stories to willing ears.
Speak truth quietly.
Listen with an open mind.
These are our decisions.
The tree nodded towards the sky, unsure if the voices were coming from the stars above or in her own mind. She said goodbye to that tree, her home, her true body sitting on the highest cliff over the fiercest ocean. As she turned away from safety, away from her roots, away from the memories that made her, another tear opened before her, and without fear or hesitation, she stepped through.
Oh yeah, have you heard? Another traveler just came through. Stories of that place again. What did they call it? Meyer song?
Yeah, the Meyer song. That's the one.
Do you really believe in all that stuff? Sounds like a fairy tale. Things that don't exist.
But the key and the door, all the stories line up.
It doesn't matter if we believe or not. It's not going to show up if we go looking.
It's so strange. How come we never get that lucky? If there's a magic library in the woods somewhere, I want to see it too.
A key?
Hello. Are you lost? It's okay. I'm a friend. You're not from around here, are you? Don't worry. I come here to escape the silence too.
What is this place?
Well, I've got a lot of books and stories inside. Do you want to join us? I think you'll fit right in.
beautiful.
It's yours. It's ours. Welcome to the Meyer song.